of a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. Okay, so if you are given equations involving fractions like this, the main goal is to create a quadratic equation of this form. And then you solve that quadratic equation. Okay, at this stage, the good thing is you only know how to factorize to solve the quadratic equation. So all these questions can be factorized, right? Now, since you are in grade 11, I'm not going to treat you like amateurs, right? So I'll start with number 3. Right, so we have x plus 5 plus 12 plus 12 over x minus 2 equals 0. Okay? Now, we have got fractions here. So in order to solve for x, first thing, we need to have a restriction. Our restriction will be, we don't want x, okay, in the third term to be equal to what? To 2. Because if the denominator becomes equal to 0, then it means the whole equation becomes undefined. You won't be able to solve. So, first thing, we put a restriction here that x cannot be equal to positive 2. Okay? We are putting the restriction because of the denominator. If you solve it and you say x is equal to 2, it won't be true. Okay? It won't be true. Because if you substitute x equal to 2, you'll find that for the third term of this equation, the denominator becomes 0. And we don't want the denominator to be 0. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then we need to determine the LCD. So the LCD, the denominator there is a 1, denominator there is a 1, therefore the LCD is x minus 2. Okay, remember last year you did algebraic fractions? Okay, that concept of algebraic fractions, you need it now, and it's going to be slightly more complex because you'll be dealing with quadratic equations. Last year it was mainly linear equations. Okay, so the LCD. Now, to carry on from here, you don't have to stress too much. You just multiply each term by the LCD. Okay? The moment you multiply each term by the LCD, since our LCD is equivalent to this denominator here, it means that you'll be left with a 12 only for the third term. Okay? So, on the next page, we're going to write x times x minus 2 plus 5 times x minus 2 plus 12 equal to 0. At this stage, you don't have to ask where did the denominators go. You should know by now. Okay? You should know by now. Right? So it should actually become natural to you to solve equations that involve fractions. It should become natural. Right? Then from here now, the objective is to create the quadratic equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So you get x squared minus 2x plus 5x minus 10 plus 12 equal to 0. Then this becomes x squared, that will give you positive 3x plus 2 equal to 0. Okay, now I just want to give you a hint. Because you haven't done any other technique of solving quadratic equations besides factorizing, there is no way that you can create a trinomial which cannot be factorized. Okay? If you create the trinomial for questions like this one at this point, before we start talking about the other unit techniques, means probably you made a mistake somewhere in your simplification. Alright? So in my case here, I'm smiling because I can factorize this. So it will be x plus 2 times x plus 1. That's equal to 0. Then you get x equals to minus 2 or x equals to negative 1. Now, the question will be, are our two solutions here both valid or not? Right? Remember we had the restriction. So you also have to refer to the restriction. X cannot be equal to 2, but here we've got x equal to minus 2, which means both answers are valid. Okay, so both of them are valid. Yes.
How do you know
Sorry?
How do you know
Okay. As long as you have got x as part of a denominator, in that case, you need to have a restriction. Like, for example, here. Okay? We have x plus 1. What will be the value of x which will make x plus 1 equal to 0? Negative 1. Which means x cannot be equal to negative 1. Because if x is equal to negative 1, it means the denominator becomes equal to 0. Right? Yes?
So, the restriction says something like this.
Sorry?
So when solving for like quadratic equation,
Involving fractions, there has to be a restriction as long as x is part of the denominator.
and so we take them at the end, like
No, I'm just doing it as part of my teaching. Okay. Right. I'm ticking. Okay, if you want, you can tick as well. There is nothing wrong. Let's say here you have got x equal to positive 2 or x equal to minus 1. It means you put a cross here, or you can write not applicable. But you have to indicate that what solutions are valid or not. Because there are times when one of them or both of them can be invalid. Which means it's possible that you can have an equation with no solutions. Okay, so I've done this one, it's a simple one. Okay, is there anybody else got a question? Okay, let's move on to one which is more complex, like number 7. Okay, number 7. Any question? Is there anybody else got any question? So if you forgot how to simplify algebraic fractions, you have to refresh yourself a little bit because it's a grade 10 concept and grade 9 as well. Okay? And then later today, I'm going to send you a PDF on quadratic equations. It's a very nice PDF with some questions where I took these questions. Okay, I'll share with you that briefly. All right. Is there anybody else got a question? Right, if you don't have a question, then let's move on to another type of quadratic equations, or rather equations involving substitution.